Do you support Donald Trump?
I do.
Why is that?
So, just a caveat there, of course, many things that I don't support, but there are many things I do. The reason I voted for him this time around specifically was my views on abortion, my views on immigration, my views on certain ways that I feel like a constitutional republic should work, attacks on free speech, and I know you'll bring up like the banning of the burning of the flag, but that's specifically not a ban specific on burning the flag, but a ban that will incite violence. But I don't agree with the ban personally, so that's something I disagree with him with. But that's just to name a few. I agree with his position with the Department of War, now that it's called. I don't agree with his positions with Ukraine or with Russia. That's some of the stuff I don't agree with. But yeah, I mean, there's many things. I mean, that in general that I do agree with.
Okay. So how does burning the American flag by yourself at your own house? How does that incite violence?
No, it isn't. It isn't banned. If you burn a flag at your house, it is not breaking the executive order. If you go and you ban in a public place, that then incites rioting or incites potential violence. Of course, that can be very subjective depending on who's looking at it.
It
But again, I
doesn't.
don't
But I
agree.
can
But
give
I don't agree.
examples of what does
But I
incite
don't. But
violence.
I don't
How
agree
about
with it.
this?
I know, but I'm saying I don't agree with that part though. So
Do,
we can
does
move
it
on to something else.
does
Yeah.
it incite violence to pardon violent rioters on January 6th that police officers?
Well, again, I have a different opinion on that. Do the people that went into the Capitol that they weren't supposed to? Yeah, should they have been trespassed? Sure, they should have been trespassed. They should have probably been fined. Should they have been put in jail? No, there are many people that have
We're
done.
not talking about them. I said
I know,
violent
no, I know, but
rioters.
you have to. No, you bring people up all the time to do
I
contrast.
said violent rioters.
I know I'm giving a contrast. Okay, violent rioters. Yes, violent rioters should, but the amount of people that were there and the violent rioters were very few.
Sure, but
And
he pardoned them specifically.
I understand that just because he didn't pardon them specifically, he pardoned all of the January 6 rioters. He didn't just say I'm pardoning these specifically. He pardoned
He could have
everybody.
specifically not pardoned them.
No,
He
I
has to
understand
pardon
that.
them individually. You know that, right?
Yeah, I understand that's something I disagree with. But I'm saying, but he pardoned everybody, and I do agree with him when he says that they were unfairly treated in the trial because a lot of them were given sentences way more in access than people that committed similar crimes on the other side of the aisle. So no, I don't
I
agree.
mean, they weren't violent insurrection at the Capitol. So give me another
Okay, but
example of a
okay,
violent
so
insurrection at the Capitol that Democrats caused
okay,
where they didn't get that much
okay. I'm
time.
not talking about. Okay, you don't have to compare. First, I don't call it insurrection. It wasn't insurrection. People
It
coming
was.
in without. No, it wasn't. No, that's you can
What
look up
defined
the
insurrection?
insurrection when you're trying to overthrow the government. That's exactly. They were not trying to overthrow
Okay,
the
so
government. They were
he
going over
said,
there to
you
make.
want me to tell you why he did?
No, you want me to tell
He
you what
said
he
to
said
take
too?
back the
Actually,
country from those that stole it from him, right?
yeah. Actually, do you know what he also said? Because you always like to do red herrings. You
Yeah,
like to do a.
you're gonna say peacefully protest, but that was
Yes, he
contradicted
did.
by him pardoning violent
No, he didn't.
rioters.
Actually, he did not. He actually went and said, "Do not do this." He went live right when he found out what was
Year
happening and said,
in hours
"Also,
after, and
no,
then
he
he
wasn't. No,
pardoned
no,
the
no.
violent rioters, the police officers.
Yes, he pardoned people that were given severe sentences, and he did not. There was no
No, he
cops. There was
pardoned the
wait, wait,
violent
wait,
rioters.
wait, wait, wait. Let's
If
make
he
one
thought they were too
caveat.
severe
There
of
was no.
sentences, he
Wait,
would have
wait.
commuted their sentence.
No, there was no individuals at the Capitol that violently harmed police to the point uh, that they were being threatened by the one person
Yes,
that
they.
died, the
What are you
one cop
talking
that no no
about?
no no wait, the one cop that he died of a heart attack the next day, but he was not hit, he was
No,
not injured,
there were
he
other
died of
cops.
a heart
The other
attack the
cops
next
that
day.
took their life.
What?
Other cops were
No,
literally in the
no, but
hospital.
you
What are you
cannot
talking
conflate
about?
one thing with
I'm
the other.
sorry. I'm
You cannot
sorry. You're
conflate
just.
suicide.
I'm
You cannot
sorry.
conflate with that.
Wait, but
You can't say
why
just
did
because it's
they? Why
suicide.
did they?
Yeah,
Because of
exactly. You
everything that
cannot.
was happening
You
due to
are
Trump
making a
supporters.
judgment. I know what I'm saying is you're making a judgment saying this person. So you're making your own judgment on this and saying this person committed specifically because of this, but you have no idea their backstory and no idea what was going on. You can't do that. Again, that is trying to take into your own account your own judgment on something that you can't do. So I mean, but I would say this: I totally disagree that was an insurrection. We're not going to agree with that because I feel like that it totally was not. Do I feel like the people that should have been totally pardoned that committed violent acts? No, I agree with you with that. That they shouldn't have been pardoned. They could have been commuted, like you said. That I agree with. But majority of the people there, yes, I feel like that he did right by them. But that's again, I don't agree with everything he does. But in general, I'd much rather have him as the president than Kamala Harris. And unfortunately, you do kind of pick between two evils when it comes down to that. But I mean that. But yeah, in that instance, yeah, I would disagree with.
Okay, so there were 150 different police officers that sustained injuries during the Capitol riot. Um, so uh, so like the idea that like they didn't like have any type of injury that would put them into a issue of harm is ridiculous. There were literally
I didn't say that. I
150
said I
police
said
officers that were
150.
harmed.
Okay. If somebody's scratched or somebody's punched, they're considered harmed. Okay, so you cannot conflate. Again, you're trying to make it like 150 people were severely injured. There weren't. There were very few people that actually needed to even stay in the hospital. I think it was maybe
Wait, how
one or
many
two
were
people that
hospitalized?
that stayed. I'm not saying in the hospital because I can go to ER. If I have a scratch in my arm, I can go to the ER. So saying that again
What's
is
how many
mixing.
how many were hospitalized?
Again, I'm not talking about hospitalizations. I'm talking about like stayed in the hospital overnight. How many overnight stays were there? Not how many
You,
people went to
you
the
answer
ER.
that question. I don't have data on that.
No, I don't have that data either. But I know that out of
So
the
then why are you
people,
using that as a basis for saying that their
no, no,
injuries
I'm
were
not
not bad enough insofar as you can just overlook
because they
them?
would have
That like
because they
really
would have
pisses me
reported.
off.
I am a nurse. I'm a nurse. So and
I
also that's very
understand.
rude to say
Then
that.
as a nurse, then you
Okay,
shouldn't be supporting such a idiot. I'm serious.
no,
You're
actually, no,
supporting a
you should
guy.
be
Listen,
supporting somebody that's a socialist. I mean, you shouldn't be
she's not a
supporting a
socialist. Can you
party.
define
Okay.
socialism?
Yes, socialism is where everything is jointly owned amongst the community. Okay,
No,
that is
that's
what
not true.
socialism is.
It's
It is
workers
also owned
control.
by. It is also owned by the
It's
government. It's also
worker
controlled by the
control.
government. It's also controlled by the government. On top of that, as well, they control. The government will also control the means of the production, and the people are also controlling the means. It's a community involved ownership of things, and that is what they preach. That hey, we're going to make this fair, so then everybody can go and work, and everybody's going to get like all this. They're going to be able to afford everything equally, but that is not shown to be true. The only thing in the world, if you look back in the world's history, the only thing that has provided the most.
I just asked
Uh,
for a definition. Can I speak now?
okay, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Jesus Christ. I'm not a socialist. Kamala Harris not a socialist. Based on the definition you provided, she's not advocating for full government ownership of the means production, nor community ownership of the means production. The typical definition you get from socialists is workers control the means of production, but saying community owns means of production is fine within a certain sense, as long as you understand the distinction between uh, acknowledging personal property. But if you want to talk about, again, socialism, that definition isn't applicable to Kamala Harris. She didn't advocate for total community ownership of the means of production.
I'm not talking about that. It's a slow
Why did you
progress
say that
towards.
she was a socialist?
No, no, because of her views on what she feels that the government controls. She feels the government should control healthcare. She feels the
That's
government
not
controls.
socialism.
It is a part of socialism. It is a
No,
part of
wait, but
socialism that
that's
people.
not socialism. That's
No,
like
I
saying
understand.
the
Okay, I
military
understand.
is socialism. That's like saying it's socialism to have the
It's not.
Medicare and Medicaid and food stamps.
Okay, let me give
All
you an
right.
example.
Do you
Let me
think
give you an
that's?
example.
Hey,
Can
listen.
I give you an example?
No, shut up and listen. Do you think that that's socialism?
No, I don't. I don't believe that's socialism. I believe it's going towards socialism. Yes. What
Okay,
I
so
believe.
then
I'll
Trump is
give you an
going
example.
towards socialism.
Let me give you an example. When you go all the way back to FDR, okay, when he wanted to introduce the New Deal, of course, he wasn't the one that implemented it, but when it was implemented, they said, okay, this is just a temporary thing. This is a temporary tax where the government's going to start doing this. Do you know that the reason we even got away from the England when we separated from England was because the whole thing with the tea, they were taxing, and now we're overtaxed in every aspect of our environment. It slowly creeps in, and over time, it's like, oh well, the government can solve this. The government can solve this. I'm not for that. And yes, do I believe that Trump has ideas that he feels the government can solve certain things? Yes, I do, and I don't agree with that. I'm totally like, okay, the government has certain duties they need to do, but the government's not there to solve all your problems. And usually when the government starts getting involved with something, it causes more corruption, and it causes more cost, and it causes more poverty. You look around the world, and where the governments have more control, there's more cost, more poverty, and less freedom. And that is true. Are you saying you disagree with that? Where governments have more control around the world, that there's not.
You're trying to brand government control in general as it causes more corruption and poverty, when government control specifically within the context of Medicaid, Social Security, and food stamps in this country has heavily reduced poverty in this country. And denying that is just historically illiterate. I'm genuinely serious. Like, you're just denying history being the basis for like all these different social programs providing a reduction in poverty in this country. You have no clue what you're talking about.
No, actually, that's
It
not
depends
true.
on
I'm
what
not
the
saying.
government. Can you please be
I'm not saying
quiet?
that.
Can you please be quiet?
No, go ahead.
It depends on what you're referencing in terms of government control. No one's saying full government control of the means of production. That's not what Kamala Harris is advocating for. So then you'd have to establish at what point of government influence does it then become socialism? Because there are plenty of things that Donald Trump's advocating for where there's governmental influence over taxing and tariffs. There's a governmental influence where he wants to take 10% of Intel. That's literally the government owning a percentage of the means of production.
Again, I did not say I agree with everything Trump did or is doing. What I'm saying is, first off, just because a program reduces something doesn't mean it's the best way. For instance, you take Social Security, okay? Yes, it sounded out like a great deal, but if you gave people, and the problem is this, is that people like...
I would love to address this point of you critiquing Social Security after. Oh, but that's not the point of the conversation. We're trying to establish whether or not she's a socialist, and you're trying to move it to you disagreeing with socialism. I'm not a socialist. You're disagreeing with governmental influence. We can talk about that later. We'll have that conversation in a second. Talk about the point.
You don't need to speak that way to me,
it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating that you're not staying on point.
No, I am staying on point. You're not staying on point. I'm talking about, yes, I'm talking about socialism, and I'm talking specifically that it's a slow creeping of change. Okay,
yeah,
so
and I understand that you're saying it's a slow creeping of change. So at what point of how much socialism is it to determine whether or not a person is socialist?
It's when they agree that, one, that people don't know what they're doing with their own lives, okay, that they need somebody else to look after their decisions. Okay, for instance, Kamala Harris was even on mic saying that 25 years old or whatever these the millennials have no idea what they're doing. Okay, so she was on mic doing this. Okay, I'm not saying that
that's not making her so, dude. Because she said that people are in dorms and like people are like less informed when they're younger is not evidence that she's a socialist.
Vice President Harris, the way that she wants to implement change in this country, to me, is a movement towards socialism. So when somebody wants to move towards socialism and socialism ideas or socialist ideas, yes, I feel just like Bernie Sanders, I feel like they are more in line with socialist values. They're not in line with a constitutional republic. Okay, now you may not agree with this, but I'm saying that based on what her movement and what she feels that people need the government in their lives to do, I do feel like she is moving toward. I feel like she actually values socialist ideology.
Okay, I'm gonna restate the same question, and you're gonna give me the same bullshit propagandistic response after. I'm asking you a specific question. What level of socialistic influence, you're saying government influence in the context of the economy, does it then become socialism? Because we both agree that Donald Trump and Kamala Harris agree with some level of social safety net, they agree with some level of regulation, they agree with some level of governmental influence over the economy. So at what point does it become socialism? Because you said that she's a socialist.
Yes, at the point when they feel that there needs to be more government control over your rights. That's when I feel like, for instance, when they go in and they say, again, this is just a small example because I'm in the medical field, when they say, okay, well, we need a national healthcare system for the government to control it. And I can tell you, I'm a retired military. I was in the Air Force for 22 years. I can tell you that the VA and TRICARE is BS. Like, it's horrible care. I pay out of pocket sometimes just to get care because it's so bad. If people really want that for their model for healthcare, people will not be happy once they get that. Now, I do believe there's a happy median. Do I feel like it should just be everybody for all? No, I believe in regulation for sure. I feel that the government has a high responsibility to regulate to make sure there's fair practices. And there's definitely unfair practices across the board when it comes to healthcare. This is just giving an example, not trying to bring into healthcare, but just giving you an example. But my biggest stick is I do not believe that more government control is the answer. And that's where it comes down to. And that's when I'm saying that if you want me to take out the word that Kamala is a socialist, okay, I'll take that out. I'll say that her ideas point towards socialism and her ideas of wanting more government.
Then that same thing would be true for Trump based upon the definition you just provided, because all of the points
I would say that.
Can I respond to a single point? You yap so long. It's unbelievable.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, you're saying control over one sector, right? That's not socialism, right? There are plenty of sectors I can point to specifically under the context of Trump's administration that he's advocating for where there's more influence. And we can point to countries around the world that have universal healthcare models, and they're actually systems. The Scandinavian countries, for example, they have freer markets. If you look at the Economic Freedom Index, they have freer markets than what we have in the United States, along with the idea that they have more social programs and universal access to healthcare. So please explain to me how you're going to say that there are freer markets just because there's going to be control over healthcare.
No, I understand that. I was giving one example. And also I can tell you from somebody that's been stationed many places overseas, I've been to the Scandinavian countries, almost all of them. I've been to Finland. And I can tell you right now that just because you take a model from there and you think you can implement it here, it cannot be. First, their size of their country is much different. The demographics of their country is much different. So
What about the demographics are relevant?
because they're mostly of the same people, they're mostly
Oh,
the
in
same
what
people
way? In what way?
that they're mostly native born people in that area, that for the past several centuries, the most native born people. Like if you go to Norway, if you look at immigration, if you like, for instance, you take the US, there's 33, I think 30% of first generation immigration in the US. If you go to any other place in the world, like if you go over to UK, it's the next one, I think at 9%. After that, you can't even get, so the US is by far totally differently built than any other.
Actually, Norway has a higher foreign-born population than the U.S.
Actually, if you
16.8% of Norway's population is foreign-born, and 13.9% of the population in the U.S. is foreign-born.
again, I'm talking about first generation immigrations. I'm
You want
not
me to
talking
bring in a
about
different? You want me to give a different country?
no. Okay, here, let me look. I have a computer here too. Let me look up because I can tell you right now. Let's look up first generation immigration. Again,
No,
you're
no,
trying
no.
to
Just look up foreign-born.
no first because foreign born could mean not necessarily mean that they're born in Norway. So you're the way you word it
Wait.
matters.
Are you saying they're ethnic demographics? Like, why are ethnic
Yes, I'm
demographics
talking.
relevant to how
No,
how
because
the economy
the
functions?
reason is because when people tend to agree politically on stuff or with ideology, then things are different. For
Wait,
instance,
that's
like
not
you
ethnicity is not ideology.
no, no, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying when people grow up in the same place and most of the people there have the same belief system, they grew up in the same kind of like morals and values. It's very different. If you go to the U.S.,
Oftentimes, immigrants will have closer norms in terms of the values than people who are already in this country, i.e., MAGA.
let me say with okay, with specifically with his order for immigration, he used an order. He already used an order that was on the books to go in and deport people that are here illegally. So he's following the rule of law with that. He is not going and somehow skipping some due process. Okay, so if somebody comes here illegally and they use a law that was already in place, that's not overstepping his bounds. He's using a law that was already there. And actually, they've already ruled on several courts. It's going up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court's already ruled in his favor several times. So I would say that no, that's not true at all. If the Supreme Court has ruled that he's all right in doing what he's doing, and of course more cases are going up, then I would say no, he is following the rule of law.
So there's an article from PBS right here. Trump says he doesn't know if he backs constitutional due process rights in a new interview. That's specifically from May 4th, if you'd like to look at that. It is the case that Donald Trump himself said that, along with the idea that he hasn't, in plenty of other circumstances, quote unquote, committed to doing due process. There's another AP News article indicating that he doesn't know if he backs due process rights. I can give you multiple different sources indicating that. In terms of due process rights, the Alien Enemies Act is claiming an emergency. What emergency can he particularly claim in order to do that? He just can't claim emergencies for everything to do whatever authoritarian bullshit you want. That's called authoritarianism. That's tyrannical. You can't just claim emergencies are happening everywhere to be able to just do whatever you want.
Okay, first off, so I know you're quoting PBS and the sources that you want. I know how and I can go and I can pull up and watch it and let you watch it with me and show that they totally take out other things of perspective when somebody's talking. They take out the rest of the context, but specifically going back
That's
to
not.
like,
PBS is non-biased.
okay, let me finish. Oh, sure. Okay. The Aliens Enemy Act, okay, specifically, he can do that if he feels that there is a rush of people coming through the borders, okay, that are threatening our society. And it's already shown that the amount of people that are coming over, the violence, like all that stuff coming over. Yes, I feel like he's fully within his right to go and within that law to say, hey, they meet this criteria. And I think that anybody that is against getting rid of people that are here legally, and I can tell you, it's affected me personally. I can tell you, my wife, she's a Filipino, okay, and she's in the Philippines. I'm waiting for the process. I'm waiting for her to be able to get here, and I'm going through. I've been almost a year, almost 2 years now, waiting for this process. And you know who gets ahead of family? And this is one thing I disagree with Trump because Trump could change this, but you know who, or Congress could too. But you know who gets ahead of family when they're going through processes? Okay, anybody that comes here for work, okay, from overseas. Anybody that comes here for a student visa. Anybody that comes here for they claim asylum at the border. Even they don't have to prove it. They have to eventually have a court date and prove it. But they all take precedent over my wife, who's pregnant, to be able to come to the U.S. So yes, I feel like the illegal and it clogs the system. It's a 2 year wait because the system's getting clogged at the border. People coming here illegally and also flying here, not just coming here that way, but also flying here, coming here through boats, many different means. Yes, I feel that people should come here legally. My grandfather came here legally. My grandmother came here legally, migrated here legally through Poland. in England. They came here. Why can't people do that as well? And do I have a heart? Yeah, my ex-wife, she was here illegally at one point. Do I have a heart for people that are here illegally? Of course I do. Of course I feel like I wish them the best. And do I wish them ill? Well, no. I mean, she got status, right? But if you get caught, and then yes, you should unfortunately go back to wherever your origins are, because every country in the world does that. If you go to England, if you go to anywhere in Europe, if you go to anywhere in Asia, I'm sorry, I can't. Okay. If you go anywhere in Asia, you'll see that. I'm answering your question. It's not a yapper. I'm giving you valid points, and you're going to say yapper. That's the thing I would love it if you listen. Actually listen to maybe think like, oh, maybe he could be right about something, instead of listening to say, oh, I'm just going to throw away all of his points. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you said that they clog the system. They're not clogging the system because they're not going through the process of the typical system. That would therefore wouldn't be clogging the system. The system would be more clogged if it is the case that they went through the legal process. That doesn't make any sense. You also want to reference this so we can make the legal process go quicker. It's artificially taking too long because Republicans are the ones that put these different types of barriers in place for making it so long for people to get into the country. So if you want the legal process to go quicker, well, then you should support Democrats that want to make it quicker, whereas Republicans specifically want to make it take longer. And then also in terms of people coming over to the country, right? People coming to the country is a good thing. It's a better thing, right? And we want immigration to be higher in this country. The issue isn't people coming to the country. The issue is the fact that it takes too long for people to get through the legal process. So it is often the case that they go into the country through the process undocumented, because it is the case that they can't get to the country otherwise. Also, undocumented immigrants and documented immigrants commit crimes at lower rates than natural-born U.S. citizens. They commit violent crime at a lower rate, at a lower rate, and property crime at a lower rate. And for undocumented immigrants, it's multiple times lower rates than natural-born U.S. citizens. So the idea that undocumented immigrants are the ones bringing crime insofar as that you have emergency at the border is ridiculous, because they're committing lower rates of crimes, and most of the people who are bringing across the border, over 90%, are U.S. citizens.